Urban spaces have been claimed by all sorts of generations of people and all sorts of people. We're setting up urban spaces for the now and for the future and to honor the past. And so you have all these different sort of people who see different desires. And I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges, is just finding agreement that takes care of as many people's needs as possible. I guess, whether it's a developer looking for massive profit and trying to squeeze as much as they can, or folks who live in the area who want the jobs and they want to be involved with that construction project, or folks who are being displaced and want that developer to put affordable housing in, versus residents who want to get access to open space, or people who live there whose views are going to be blocked if they, if this thing built up and they can't see the bay anymore, or whatever. So I think that's the biggest challenge, is just actually getting people into the room together and having constructive dialogue, and then having a vision for what it might look like in the future.
We've got a lot of stories where people, they didn't want the trail there, but once it was there, they actually started using it and started really appreciating the ability to get out and go long distances, short distances on a neighborhood trail where they met their neighbors and walked their dog and did all the things that they can do on the trail. People that support it have used the trails and they like using them regularly. If they have a local trail, it's really their favorite. It's like a love affair almost that a lot of people have with trails. So we get things from our members all the time that say what their favorite thing is to do on their trail, and we try and promote those in our magazine too and pass them on to help inspire other people. Sometimes with reusing spaces, though, there's problems with contamination, and so they test the soil here regularly for arsenic, especially with old rail lines. There's typically some arsenic problems, and then in the raised beds they use primarily imported soil for that. Yeah, you have to get funding, and there needs to be a transaction where you purchase the property. There's several ways to go about it. If it's a line that's already abandoned, then the railroad, if they still own it, then they can sell it to you directly. And if they abandon it, then the easement, the property actually reverts to the adjacent landowners.
Oh, wow.
So if it's abandoned, it's really hard to get the property back, because a lot of times they don't want to sell it. But we have a process called rail banking that in the early 80s they passed a rails to Trails Act, and part of that, it preserves the corridor not only for a trail in the meantime, but if there's ever a real resurgence of rail, which we're seeing a little bit of now, but for light rail corridors and also for freight, if there is a resurgence of that, they can come in and put the rail back in, and they won't have lost the corridor.
We were given this land as part of the base closure process that began back in 1995. And as a result of negotiations with the city and the Navy and HUD, we were given 34 acres of land and 200 units of housing, and then some buildings for our service center and warehouses and things like that. And when you get that much, the housing was, we knew what we were going to do with it. We were going to provide housing for homeless families. But the land, which is 20 acres of open space, we needed to figure out a use for it. It could either be a real resource for the community, or it could be a drain on the community, quite frankly. And we chose to look at it as a resource, and so we started finding ways to use the land that would not only benefit the agency, but would benefit residents as well. We were required to be pretty specific about what we wanted to use each space for. And granted, you can kind of understand that because the communities wanted to know what they were getting. And we were very fortunate at the time. One of the service providers was University Avenue Housing, which was led by some folks who were pretty visionary and had a lot of experience in urban farming and urban gardening, and one of them being Patrick Archie, who's an environmental instructor up at UC Berkeley. And they saw this land in particular, where we're at now, as having real potential for horticulture-based business. And they saw it as a way to act as a center for healing for residents, get out here in the outdoors and do something productive, but also as a revenue generating project. And there's some real good kind of business sense of that, because we're in the midst of what one day we hope is going to become a 700-acre redevelopment project. There's going to be a lot of housing, a lot of parkland, a lot of civic areas, a lot of retail space, and all of that is going to require landscaping. So what better place to buy your plants from than something that's already on site?
Yeah.
I think you have to take the long view. It doesn't happen quickly. You have to have a sense that you're entitled to this. I mean, we're entitled to have a better community out here. And as long as everything we're doing is to improve that community, then nothing should get in the way of that. There's probably no higher purpose than there is to help people overcome homelessness and live stable lives. So, a lot of economics saying, well, no, instead of a garden here, you should have a retail store. A garden is much more healthier for the community.
We actually have a bill in Congress right now called the ACT Act, and it's the Active Community Transportation Act. And the basic idea is that we've really been focusing our federal investment for too long just on streets and on serving the motor vehicles. And so in the last round of federal authorization, there was some pilot programs to try and shift more of the trips that people can take to walking and biking. And a third of our population actually can't drive a car because they're either too old, too young, or unable to. And most of our trips are fairly short trips that could be taken by walking or bike. So we feel like there needs to be a larger investment in that, and so this bill would create a fund that is a competitive grant program for cities to get more federal funding to make an impact, make a large impact in each of these cities. The focus is on HR 4722, which is in the House, and Earl Blumenauer is the author. He's a congressman out of Oregon. I think we have over 60 Congress co-sponsors right now for the bill. So it's something that has really wide support from the public, and they see the benefit of trails, and they want more of the funding to go towards completing this system and making the network better and more usable.
Bike here and try to use our shop. It'd be $5 an hour to use our shop here. Two stands that's in the front area is the mechanic area. Behind the orange line is the volunteer area. So a lot of people be like, I like to support your shop and I pay $5 an hour to use your shop or something like.
We are always looking for skilled volunteers, people who know how to fix bikes, people who are really good at working with all sorts of different types of people. We want to open up a volunteer-run community center or volunteer community bike shop here, so people who are good with fixing problems on bikes and good with working with people on that level, we would love to talk with them. We're looking for the equipment to start that up, and so bike stands and bike-specific tools would be really helpful. In order to keep the doors open here, we have to do sales, and so we're definitely looking for bikes that could be easily sold to the general public. Check us out on our website, www.cyclesofchangeapc.org. They can also just drop by anytime we're open, which is right now Wednesday through Saturday, 11 to 6, 11 to 5 on Saturdays.
For us, we look for interns and college students, those types of people that can help us with some of the research and planning work that we do.
A lot of what actually gets done, we have a lot of space out here. A lot of what gets done is done by volunteers. Foster's Plant Nursery. It's a retail plant nursery open to the public 5 days a week, selling native plants, drought-tolerant, climate-appropriate, and then edible plants. And it's again one of our social enterprises, just like Cycles of Change. It employs residents in permanent and in trainee positions and helps generate revenue for the agency, so we can do our main job, which is helping people overcome homelessness.
If we're going to be self-reliant and sustainable, we all need to be accountable and pull ourselves up by the britches and make it happen.